Welcome to the Authentic Life Connection podcast. I'm your host, Seth Lusk. I'm a master certified life coach, author, personal trainer, and nutrition specialist. For over a decade, I've been helping people with their dreams and goals for their life and health. I spent many years watching people get frustrated with their journey in life and giving up on taking actions towards their goals. So I dug in deep to find answers to why so many of us face this same frustration and struggle in life. So in this podcast, we're going to dive in deep on topics surrounding what it means to consistently live a fulfilling and authentic life, where you are unstoppable in taking action towards your dreams and goals. So the only question is, are you ready to start living your most authentic and fulfilling life once and for all? Then let's get started, shall we? Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast for the 100th time. For those of you listening in for the first time, welcome. It is our 100th episode today, and I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of talking with you all, kind of just about a topic and giving you all some insight into it, I'm going to go a little bit more personal this week. I polled my followers on Instagram, on Facebook, and I polled my Facebook group, and I asked people, what would you like to hear from me for my 100th episode? And I got a resounding message that basically said, we want to hear more about you and your life. And a lot of people also talked about wanting to hear more about what it's like to live as a life coach. And so I decided for my 100th episode that's what I'm going to talk about with you guys, is what is my life like personally as a life coach. And everyone who I hear their story about becoming a life coach and what their life is like a life coach, it's always a little bit different. So my story is going to be the same. And yeah, so I've got that for you guys, and I want you to stay tuned to the end of the episode, because I am also, for my 100th episode today, going to do a special giveaway. And it's something I'm really excited to offer you guys. I also polled my audience and people who had already coached with me about what it is that I could offer you guys that would be special in this episode. So I want you to stay tuned to the end of this episode, where I'm going to tell you guys about the special giveaway and what it is that you can do to take part in that special giveaway. And yeah, today, talking about living as a life coach, my experience of living as a life coach. And I want to start off by just telling you guys a little bit about my backstory. My first episode on this podcast, which was 100 episodes ago, or 99 episodes ago, I gave you guys an episode called Getting to Know Me. And, since then, I've gotten to know me a lot better. So I'm going to talk with you all about a little, with my background, where I come from, what my life has been like prior to being a life coach, and why I decided to become a life coach, and then what my life has been like as a life coach. So starting from the very beginning, guys, I was born in 1984 in Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and I was born into what I would call quite a conservative religious family. Guys, I love my family, and if you've read my book, which, by the way, if you haven't read my book, shame on you, go to Amazon and get your copy. It's a great book. It's autobiographical, but it's autobiographical and self-help. So it's like I use my life story to show you guys something that you can do differently in your life to re-empower yourselves and start showing up for the things that you truly want in life, instead of distracting yourself from the things that you want with cheap substitutes. So if you don't have a copy of my book yet, head over to my website and you can order a copy of the book through Amazon. You just have to select your marketplace. Log in, select your marketplace, and then order your copy of the book. So go check out the book on Amazon and get your copy today. But so those of you who haven't read my book, you don't know this. I grew up in a very religious family. And while I love my family, and I am not here to say that my family did anything wrong with how they raised me and how we grew up together, it was a challenge. It was a challenge for every single person involved in these 6 relationships. And well, actually, yeah, 6 relations. There were 6 of us in the family. So we all have these unique relationships with each other, and actually, I guess that would mean that there are 36 relationships in this family, because 6 times 6 is 36. So 36 relationships in this family, and all of them were so unique. And My relationships with this family, these 6 relationships that I personally had with this family, including my relationship with myself, were very challenging, very complicated. And part of this was because little did I know at the time when I was a kid, I didn't know what to call it. I just started realizing around the age that boys started having crushes on girls and girls started having crushes on boys and talking about cooties and kisses and all of that. I had crushes on boys in my class. I didn't know what that meant at the time. And it wasn't until my teenage years that I realized that there was a word for this. Gay, homosexual, queer, whatever the word is you want to use. A lot of people in that time called it faggot, some really derogatory terms. I didn't know what it was called. And then when I found out what it was called, I also found out that it was a diagnosable mental disorder in the US that could be treated with electroshock therapy and all sorts of different crazy conversion therapies. When I was growing up as a kid and a teenager, being gay in the USA was still treated as a mental illness that you could be institutionalized for, electrocuted for, and treated with all sorts of heat therapies and crazy therapies at the time because it was a diagnosable mental disorder in the DSM. So I, my friends, was terrified. I was terrified, not only because society as a whole in the US didn't know how to accept homosexuality and still viewed it as being a perverted sexual deviant disease. Not only that, but I was growing up in a very Christian family, in a Christian realm of society that told me that not only is this a diagnosable disease, but you're going to burn in hell for it. God forgives sins, but this sin is unforgivable and you will burn in hell for it. So my friends, I was terrified as a teenager and as a kid. I was terrified of people learning my secret. Like I thought that, I was the only one, that I was one of these weird people, that there were only 1% of us out there in the US, and I was one of these weird sexual deviants that if people found out about it, that, I was going to, first of all, burn in hell when I died, but that I was going to be cast out of society or maybe beaten up or killed, or all of these different fears that I didn't know how my family would react. I was terrified. And this led to a lot of very confusing interactions with my family. And what I mean by that is I didn't know how to tell my family what I needed and what I wanted from them without revealing my secret. And so it was all a bunch of really backwards expectations that I had from my family, and them having expectations from me, and them not understanding why I was showing up in my life the way I was. I was confused, I was scared, and because of this I was angry, and I became very aggressive in my teenage years, verbally and physically, with my brothers, because I didn't know how I was going to protect myself from being found out. And every time I was accused of something in my life that possibly led to people looking at me as being messed up or screwed up or broken in some way, I was terrified of this because it was one step closer to them finding out my ultimate secret. And so I was very, very defensive and aggressive as a teenager and a child. And this, I know for my family, was a massive challenge to not only live with, but they had no clue what was going on. They had no clue why I was acting this way. And they're being taught by the church at this time that I'm just a child that needs to be punished and needs to be shown how to respect and blah, 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 blah. They had no clue what was going on in my head, and I was definitely not going to tell them. So, guys, my childhood was full of a lot of fear, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of me laying in my bed at night and just screaming into my pillow and beating up my bed and my pillow and screaming and begging God to please take this away from me and just make it stop and make me like girls, and please, like, why did I have to be this way? And all of this self-hatred and self-loathing and fear, and then also part of me being like, why do I have to hate myself? Why can't this just be okay? And why can't I find a guy and fall in love just like every other guy finds a girl and falls in love, and spend my life with a person that I love? Why is this such a bad thing? And as I got later into my teenage years, I started actually seeing things on television, seeing things in movies, and there were guys in my high school that were coming out as being gay, and I started actually questioning, like, maybe this isn't such a terrible thing, but then I can't tell my family and I've just got to keep it hidden. And behind my parents' backs, I started kind of experimenting with some boys, and I had my first boyfriend at the age of 17 who was an adult. And so this was technically, if I testified against him, illegal, but where I lived at the time in Virginia at the age of 17, I was considered at the age of consent. So as long as I said it was my idea and I consented, nothing could be done. My parents found out about my first boyfriend, and it did not go over well. And they actually wanted me to press charges against this guy. And there's still a lot of some frustration there about that story. But my side of the story is that I was not forced or coerced into anything. I still believe that truly. I still find my first boyfriend ever to be an amazing guy, and I kept in contact with him all the way up until he died a couple of years ago from complications with COVID. And I found him to be a truly amazing guy that opened my eyes to see that I didn't have to judge myself. I didn't have to hate myself. I didn't have to see myself as being this disgusting, horrible person that was going to hell, and that there were so many gay men around me who were suffering with the same thing. But there were also so many gay men around me who were living fulfilling lives as gay men, and that I could possibly do the same. And, my parents moved me to another state at this time, and they kind of wanted to, they hoped that by moving me away from this guy that I would stop being gay. Well, it didn't go away, and there was a lot of frustration, a lot of fighting in my last 2 years of high school because my parents thought that homosexuality was a disease that they were going to cure me of. And after high school, I was sort of given a choice, an ultimatum. My parents and I will disagree on the story, and that's okay because, it's not that someone is right or wrong here. I was basically given a choice that I was not going to make because it didn't align with my values of being understood. And that choice was to basically not act as a gay male in order to stay living at home with my parents, or I had to get out of the house. So I see it as I got kicked out. My parents see it as they gave me a choice and I chose to be gay and that I didn't love my family enough. And that's okay. I'm not angry about this. I'm not bitter about this. I completely understand why they made this choice, because this is what the church was telling them was right at the time. This is what the church was telling them that they needed to do as good Christian parents. And so they were afraid as well. And I can understand that. I can empathize with that. I could have compassion for my parents because of this, because I understand what it's like to be this afraid and to not want to burn in hell for something, for a choice that you're making in life. And so I don't have hatred towards my parents or my family. I don't have regret about anything about my childhood or this moment in time in which this kicking out or / choice was made, because it defined the path of my life to where I am right now. So as an adult, after moving out of my parents' house, I went to work and I struggled and I was really suffering trying to figure out how to make life work. My parents were very protective of us as teenagers and kids, so we didn't get a lot of freedom and responsibility or independence because they were taught the model of control your children and not to give them a lot of freedom, because especially me, since me being the sexual deviant that they thought I was, giving me freedom would mean that they were giving me more freedom to live a sinful lifestyle under their household. So it was all about kind of controlling us as much as possible and keeping an overwatch over us as much as possible. So I didn't know much about how to live a life as an independent adult. I had to figure it out. And what does it mean to pay bills? And what does it mean to, pay rent and buy your own food and set your own bedtimes and all of this stuff? I was figuring out everything. What does it mean to be an adult? And at the same time, I was trying to figure out what to do about the fact that I graduated from high school with really good grades. And my whole plan was to go to college, but that was taken away because I couldn't afford to go to college by myself. And in the USA, until you're 25 years old, you cannot apply for student loans as long as you're still considered on your parents' income. So I was not eligible for student loans because my parents made too much money, but they weren't going to give me any money for college for multiple reasons. Number one, because I didn't live with them. Number two, they saw it as supporting a sinful lifestyle. So there was no way that they were going to help me pay for my university. So I was basically stuck having to work until I was 25 to save up money and find a way to put myself through college. And, I understand why my parents also didn't want to pay for me to go to university. I get it, and I don't hold any resentment. Once I actually went to college, we had sort of healed this relationship to the point that, they let me stay with them for a short period of time. And I would say they helped me in various ways when I was in university. They didn't necessarily pay for my college, but they helped me in ways. They didn't refuse to help me when I was struggling to work and put myself through college. They help me with various bills here and there, or providing me with food, or things like this, what parents would do for a child. So again, I also want to say my relationship with my parents that I described when I was a teenager and a kid, we healed that. And there isn't any resentment or regret there. I'm just simply giving you an account of kind of how things were happening at the time. So yeah, I spent time from the age of 18 to the age of 25 working and trying to make a living and trying to save money so that I could eventually put myself through college, which gave me a lot of time to think about what I wanted to do when I actually went to college. And I just knew that I was meant to use my experience as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult coming out, to help other people not suffer the way that I suffered, to help other people be unashamed to be exactly who they are and see that it's okay, that they're not a horrible, deviant person. Especially, I had a soft spot for helping gay men that were in the closet. I felt a tremendous tug in my heart when I would meet a gay guy that was afraid to tell his family about him being gay because he was afraid of his family turning their backs on him. And every time I would meet a guy like this, that they were willing to hide themselves and reject themselves because they were afraid of feeling rejection outside of them. And I felt this tremendous tug inside of me to want to help people not have to go through that. So when I finally got the chance to go to college, I decided I wanted to study psychology. And that's what I started studying. I went to Mississippi College in Clinton, Mississippi, and I started studying psychology. And before I graduated, I took a bunch of elective courses in nutrition. And I was getting close to the part of my undergrad program. It was my bachelor's degree, where I had to choose a career path with psychology in order to decide what classes I wanted to take and how I wanted to graduate with what sort of curriculum under my belt, because there were different paths that you could take with psychology in this university. So I decided, actually, at this point in time, looking at the paths that I had before me, that psychology wasn't how I was going to help people. I had several reasons. Number one, because I didn't want to diagnose people with diseases, especially when I saw that at one point in time in my own lifetime, me being gay was a diagnosable disease. And if I had been, seeing a psychologist when I was 13, 14 years old, before this was, not, or taken out of the DSM as a diagnosable disease, I could have been put on medication and been taught that I had some sort of mental illness for being gay. And I didn't want to treat people this way. I didn't want to help people in this way. Not to mention some of the ways in which you had to be board certified to practice psychology for yourself. I would have been almost 40 years old before I was allowed to practice in a way that I felt was authentic for me. And then if I moved states, I would have to get reboard certified. And I was just like, I don't think this is the way that I want to help people. But I was grateful for the background in psychology. I was grateful for my understanding of psychology and mental illness and how these mental illnesses are diagnosed, because it also helped me to see that the diagnosing process is also very subjective. And it helped me to understand that there are other schools of thought out there about these mental illnesses, and that there are ways to approach psychology that aren't necessarily the accepted ways of approaching psychology right now, because the ways of approaching psychology before has constantly changed, and it will continue to change. So I decided, I was grateful for this experience in psychology, understanding how to diagnose mental illness, understanding how research is done in psychology, understanding the basics of how the human mind develops and how we sort of create our personality and our character and our behaviors, because I studied developmental psychology as well. I studied abnormal psychology to study the various symptoms of mental disorders and how they are diagnosable. So I was very appreciative of this education, but I started understanding that there was more to life than just this, more to a life that created a fulfilling life than just this. And I had been studying nutrition and, as a byproduct, studying a little bit about exercise. So I went to one of my professors during college who was teaching me a lot about nutrition, and I asked her, what if I wanted to switch degrees? What if I wanted to switch curriculums? And so she became my advisor. I switched advisors, and she helped me to switch my curriculum to where I could graduate from college, Still, at the same time I would have graduated before, I had to work my butt off and take a ton of classes. So I was taking, like, at one point in time, I had to get special accommodations from, or not accommodations, I had to get special permission from the Dean of Academics to take, like, twice the course load that a student was allowed to take in my university to graduate at the same time, so I wouldn't have to go to school for 5 years. So I ended up graduating with 2 degrees, one in exercise physiology and human nutrition, and then the other in psychology. So that's what I did. I went back to school. I studied, well, I didn't go back to school. I decided, kind of a little bit over halfway through my degree program to switch my degree to exercise physiology and nutrition. And so when I graduated, I had been doing an apprenticeship, or not an apprenticeship, they call it an internship in the USA. So I was doing an internship at a place called the Baptist Healthplex. And my internship supervisor was also one of my professors. And he basically hired me before I even graduated. Like about 2 months before I graduated, he had to ask the dean of my department if there was any chance that I wouldn't graduate. And he was like, no, I think even if he failed all of his classes at this point in time, he would still graduate. And I don't think it's possible for him to fail his classes looking at his grades. So he's going to graduate. And so my internship supervisor, who was also basically the head of the place that I was interning at, and also one of my professors, got permission to hire me before I graduated for this job that technically I would need my degree in. So I got hired through my internship because my internship supervisor was like, you're one of the most knowledgeable internees that we've had here, and the way that you have learned to apply the things that you are learning in school and make it basically I was helping people with exercise and nutrition. And he was really kind of impressed with how I was able to apply what I had learned to creating workout programs for people, to helping people with their eating habits. And so he wanted me. And so he hired me early. I started working as this basically personal trainer and nutrition specialist and I was teaching group fitness at this Baptist Healthplex. And immediately I got a lot of attention, because I was very passionate about what I did. I was very knowledgeable about what I did. So my schedule filled up really, really fast. Like to the point where people were coming to me and I was having to be like, I don't know if I have time to fit you in. And I was always busy. I think, if I remember correctly, I was making more than twice as much in my commission for personal training than the next personal trainer below me. I think the amount of commission I got for personal training was twice as much as the next highest personal trainer in their commission. So I was making a ton of money doing this. Well, not a ton of money, but I was making a ton of money in comparison to everybody else that I was working with. I was getting a lot of attention. A lot of people wanted to come to my classes. A lot of people wanted me to train them because they saw what I did with other people. I had a lot of people coming to me post-surgery, a lot of people coming to me post-metabolic disorder, post-injuries, and people just knew me as the guy that could give you a really, what is the word for it? Like a unique and catered program that would fit specifically for you, your needs, and exactly what you were looking for and where you were in your current fitness levels and with nutrition. So basically, I was kind of known as that guy that could create a solution for anybody and show you what you thought was impossible for you could be possible for you. So I worked there for about 4 years, and I got married during this time. And the guy that I married was from Switzerland. We got married in the US, and it was around this time, about 4-year mark, that he was wanting to move back to Switzerland. And he asked me to go with him, so I did. And it was also around this time, guys, that I was getting a bit frustrated in my career as a personal trainer. And the reason I was getting frustrated is because I noticed that even though I was giving people these amazing programs and they were seeing results, I would see these people beat themselves up to the point that they would give up. I would see these people yo-yo with their goals and come for a certain period of time and then give up and then come back and then give up and then come back and then give up. I would see people defeat themselves in the gym and convince themselves that they were never going to see the results that they wanted and that they were so broken and so useless there was no point in trying. And I could see this happening before they would actually give up. And it was like I knew if I could just get in there and understand what was going on in their thinking, then I could probably help them to solve for why they're giving up right now. But I didn't have access to that. As their personal trainer, they didn't want me to have access to that. If I started talking to them about, the way that they're thinking, about their relationship with themselves, they would sort of almost get irritated with me and cut me off and be like, no, that's not the problem. The problem is I just need the right exercises. The problem is I just need the right list of foods. They didn't want to look at those areas of their life because it was uncomfortable for them. And because I was just classified as a personal trainer, they were like, definitely not going to give you the space to start diving in there and have me looking at it. So I was always kind of met with this barrier that I was like, if I could just get over to the other side of this barrier, I really feel like I could help these people. So anyways, I moved to Switzerland at this time, and it was at this time that about 4 or 5 months later, my current husband, now ex-husband, looked at me. Well, he didn't even look at me, guys. He, through text messages, asked me for a divorce. And I remember standing there in the Zurich train station, waiting for my train to go home from my German classes at the time, and getting this text message from my husband, and literally almost just dropping my phone on the platform where I was standing waiting for the train, being like, "You've got to be kidding me. This is a joke." I was like, I seriously just sold everything I had in the US. I left everything behind. I made my boss angry leaving and was told I could never come back. I did all of this for this man that I married and I trusted, and he was texting me to tell me he wanted a divorce. I was infuriated. I was devastated. I was dumbfounded. I was confused. I was anxious. I was terrified. I was sad, but I was also relieved. Because for a while, I had also felt like something was off in this relationship, and I wasn't sure if it was going to work. But here's the thing. I noticed that sense of relief, and then I had to ask myself, why did I put myself in this position? Why did I choose this path? Why did I end up here? Why is my life like this? And I started listening to podcasts. It was around this time I was like, I want information. I want self-help. And so I started reading books. I started listening to podcasts, and I started discovering some life coaching podcasts. The first one I ever discovered was Brooke Castillo's The Life Coach School podcast. And I started listening to her, and the things that she was talking about rang so true for me in my life. She was teaching about emotional responsibility and how our thoughts create our feelings and therefore our actions and our reality in life that we create for ourselves. And I started going back through my life and realizing the choices I was making in life, the actions I was taking were a result of emotions that I was either resisting or reacting to that I thought other people were making me feel. And I was giving them the power to make these emotions in me. And I was literally my whole entire life choosing to be a victim in my own life. And I never was able to see it before. I always thought my life was just hard and it just sucked and I had to deal with it and I had to fight through it and I had to struggle through it and I had to fight to just get by and fight to make it and, to survive in life. And I realized that I was keeping myself in this position by the choices I was making due to what I believed and due to what I was feeling and my reactions to those feelings and my resistance to certain feelings. So guys, I was at this point in my life and I was facing a divorce. I was fully understanding my responsibility in creating the life that I had created up until that point. And it was around this time that I met a boyfriend who is now my current husband, and we started dating, and I started applying for jobs in Switzerland. I got a job working for another gym in Switzerland, again started working with people on personal training, and I still noticed the same yo-yoing, the same everyone coming to me with the same goals of guys wanting bigger shoulders and six-packs so they could feel better about themselves, wanting to lose their belly so they could feel better about themselves and be more attractive, girls wanting to be leaner, thinner, having a thigh gap, having more toned thighs, having, daintier arms and whatever so that they could feel better about themselves, and still noticing the same yo-yoing and the same bouncing back and forth, the same amount of self-resentment and regret and shame that they approached their fitness journey from. And I wanted to help them, but I couldn't because I was being told by these gyms what I could do to help these people and how I was limited and the time I could spend with them and, what else I, basically had to be cleaning. I was basically being used as a warm body to be a janitor. And then when someone wanted a personal trainer, I could help them. So I was like, you know what, this is such an inefficient and not a good use of my time, and this isn't how I want to help people. So I left the job and started my own company as a personal trainer and started working with people one-on-one. And I was still listening to these podcasts, still understanding more and more about life coaching at the time and how it applied to my life and how I could use these tools in my life to change my life. And I was really making some huge changes in my life and how I showed up in my life and the excuses that I would make in life, and realizing like, I don't have to keep making these excuses. I get why I am making them, but they're actually not excuses. I have other ways that I can do things in life if I just look at why I'm choosing to believe what I believe and see that there are other options out there, and then finding the one that rang truest for me and what I wanted in life, and then going after it in an authentic way for me. So at this time I was, I had my own business and I was doing a lot of personal training, and I started noticing some of the old patterns that I had in my life of food cravings holding power over me, and how I would do a lot of emotional eating and then beating myself up in the gym to try and lose the weight. I started noticing these patterns as I dove more and more into self-help. I started noticing like I was actually doing this to myself. I didn't even realize I was doing it to myself because it was so normalized by society, like exercise to burn off the calories that you eat, and all of this like subconscious messaging from society about exercise and dieting and blah, 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 blah. And I started noticing some really destructive patterns in how I had been approaching fitness and nutrition. And I was like, oh my God, I can help people. Like, I can help people overcome this instead of taking the same approach that I've been going at my own fitness, my own, nutrition and health with this self-defeating, self-deprecating, shameful, disgust, self-hatred way of approaching my fitness and health. And so I decided I wanted to start using the tools that I was learning to help myself in my business to help people. I wanted to help people to fix the internal issues that were creating the external circumstances that they thought were the actual problem. And so they wanted to attack the symptoms instead of attacking the underlying cause, because they didn't see the underlying cause. They didn't even see that there was an underlying cause and that they had choice in doing something different. I wanted to teach people how to approach their health and their nutrition without it being about dependence, without it being about resistance, without it being about trading addictions, one addiction for another. So instead of being addicted to food, I get addicted to exercise and get addicted to being thin and people giving me compliments about my body. And, I wanted to teach people how to love themselves exactly where they are, and stop trading addictions and start giving themselves the love and the appreciation and the attention and the acceptance that they craved, and that from there they could learn healthy habits that were authentic for them and let their body heal and show them, this is how I look, this is how I feel, this is what I can do when I am healthy and you love me and take care of me. And oftentimes, yes, this resulted in a lot of weight loss, but it wasn't because they needed to be good enough through that weight loss. It was because they realized how they were abusing their body with food, with alcohol, with not sleeping, with going to the gym and screwing up their metabolism, trying to burn off every calorie that they possibly ate, or making themselves throw up, or, all of these ways in which they were abusing their body. And they could release those habits because they recognized they were a symptom of a deeper issue that they had with themselves and their relationship with themselves. So I wanted to help people make true, unstoppable change in their life. Not this kind of change is like, oh, as long as you keep working with me and we keep, forcing you into the gym and making you do these exercises and making you eat these foods that you hate and not eating these foods over here that you feel like you're deprived from and you actually love and are making you miserable in life. I didn't want people to take that approach anymore. I wanted people to take the approach of, I'm not restricting myself from these foods over here. Because yeah, sure, when I eat them, I can enjoy them. But I have a life that I enjoy. I have goals that I enjoy. I have a process and a journey that I enjoy. And eating these foods over here doesn't help me stay in that journey, doesn't help me stay in that process. So it's not that I have to restrict them. I'm actually free from not feeling like I have to eat them to numb out of my life in order to feel pleasure, in order to feel short, temporary fixes of pleasure. Instead, I get to feel pleasure in all of my life. And therefore, I don't need these foods, and I don't need them in excess to the point that they're going to keep causing me to gain weight and destroy my body, because I love all of my life now. This is what I wanted to help people with. So I decided to go back to school and I got my life coaching certificate. I got master certified as a life coach through an ICF accredited program. And I got my certification and I started offering life coaching to my clients. And I was offering them to my personal training clients, but a lot of my personal training clients wouldn't let me help them. They were like, no. You can keep that life coaching stuff. Just tell me what exercises you want me to do. Just tell me what foods to eat. And every time, inevitably, they would end up exactly where I told them they would end up, in the space of resistance, where they would go back to binge eating or go back to scarfing down the foods that they felt like they were eating against their own will. And they were like, no, don't. They were trying to resist it the whole time. And then they would just give in to the cravings. And I kept telling them, if you keep taking this approach, this is where it will always lead. Either that or you're just going to trade the food addiction to exercise addiction. You're going to tear your body apart. And you're going to start having muscle issues and joint pain issues and all of these other issues over here. You're just going to trade one addiction for another. But all addictions lead you to a place where you don't want to be. But I had clients that were very resistant to letting me help them. All they wanted was tell me the exercises and just make me do them. So it was literally just me standing over them, cracking the whip, counting reps, and telling them pick up the weight and do this. And I got so frustrated and fed up with doing this with people that I started telling people, no. After your contract is over with me, we're done. You can go find another personal trainer. There are plenty of people out there that can create an exercise program. There are plenty of people out there that can tell you how to lift weights and what exercises you should be doing and what foods you should be doing. But that's not your problem because you already know what exercises you want to do. You already know what foods you want to eat, but you're not doing it. And it's because it has nothing to do with you getting a list of foods or a list of exercises. There's another issue going on here and you're not letting me help you with it. So I'm no longer interested. Because if you're not going to let me help you in a way that I can authentically help you, then go find someone else who wants to help you in the way you think you need helped. And I wish you the best of luck, but I'm telling you, it's going to lead you right back here every time. So I let my clients go that were no longer willing to look into the life coaching, and I reset up my business model to where I only take personal training clients from life coaching clients of mine. So once they've completed a coaching contract and they're aware of, emotional responsibility, they're aware of the thought model, they're aware of how their emotions create their experience in life, and their thoughts create those emotions, and how their beliefs create those emotions. And they're aware of their true core values, their true core sensitivities in life, and what they truly want out of life and what their life mission is. And from there, they can co-create with me a plan of how they want to approach taking care of their body. That isn't about resistance. That isn't about me forcing them to eat certain foods or do certain exercises. That's about them wanting to do this, learning how to do this on their own, and then not needing me anymore to be able to thrive in their life and keep creating health and wellness in their life in a holistic way. That was my goal in life. So it was to help people in this way. And so I created this business model where it's like, yeah, sure, I can help you with nutrition. I can help you with exercise. But those we get to after we fix the underlying reason why you let your fitness and your nutrition get out of hand, because these are just a symptom of something else. So that was my new business model. And I started, helping people with coaching and going into this approach. And here we are today. I have my life coaching business. I currently take 4 personal training clients at a time, and they're all people that have completed a coaching contract with me. And my goal with them in personal training is to get them to a point where they no longer need me as a personal trainer. If I am needed to crack the whip on them all the time to force them to exercise, then to me, all I've created is more dependence. And my goal is to get them to a point where they're able to show up in their life in a way where they are empowered to make the decisions, go to the gym, or even if they don't want to go to the gym, maybe buy a TRX strap and work out at home, maybe buy some gym equipment and work out at home, but they no longer have to have somebody telling them what they have to and need to do in order to create health in their life. Now, if they want to come back to me and be like, hey, I have some new goals, can you teach me some new techniques to reach those? Of course I'm going to help them, because now we have a new goal, but I want them to be self-sustainable units. That is my goal as a coach. And I know a lot of you guys don't understand that because you're used to this dependence model when it comes to fitness and nutrition and getting help, and that someone helps you to a certain point in time and then, you can't afford them anymore, but you're used to feeling this dependence on someone telling you what you have to and should do instead of making the decisions for yourself. And my goal was to help people have freedom, self-love, self-care, and unconditional self-worth to be able to make these decisions for themselves. So now you see how and why I've chosen this path to becoming a life coach, and that has brought us to where I am today. where I have my podcast. I am now on episode 100 talking to you guys. And I'm putting out this podcast because I wanted to offer free tools out there for my listeners to start implementing into their own life the things that I've learned, and to experience just a taste of the work that I do with my clients and a taste of the work that I've experienced with myself and coaches that I've worked with to help me, and what that can feel like in your life, and to just get a glimpse of the fact that you can be empowered. The excuses you're making in your life, they're not real. They're based in a lot of beliefs that you have maybe adopted and internalized that don't have to be yours. And this isn't about restriction. This isn't about resistance. This isn't about willpowering your way into a life where you just resist all of the things that you love in order to get No, it's about true freedom to create a life that you truly desire, where you don't need the little temporary pleasures, and you don't need them in such large quantities that they're creating destruction in your life. You are in charge of your life and the results you create, and you feel empowered and free to do just that. So I wanted to share with you all a bit of what that was like to become a life coach, and now I want to share with you all a little bit of what it is like living as a life coach from my personal experience. Because some of you may be considering taking on the career path of being a life coach. And so I want you all to know kind of what that experience is like of being a life coach. And some of you out there just maybe are considering hiring a life coach. And maybe you want to know what life coaching is really all about. And so hearing what life coaching is really all about and what my life as a life coach is like and the things that I do because of the fact that I life coach might help you in deciding whether or not working with a life coach is for you. So what is living like when your profession is a life coach? I will say, first of all, I was warned. I mentioned Brooke Castillo's podcast, The Life Coach School. She was one of the many life coaches that inspired me and that I look to for just insight about life coaching. But one of the other life coaches that I love and follow, and I listen to her podcast as well, is Christine Hassler. Her podcast is called Over It and On With It. And she talks in her podcast about people becoming a life coach. And I was warned by her. She said in a book that I read by her and in her podcast, that she said, your life will become your work and your experimental lab. And it is very important to create clear boundaries for yourself as a coach and recognize when you might be letting your own perfectionism push you into a path of seeing yourself as a constant project that must be worked on and improved and must be perfect in order to be an effective coach. And she was like, she's seen many life coaches end up in this state of suffering because they turn their life into this constant state of you're broken, you're not good enough. And it's not that it's bad that your life becomes your experimental lab and becomes your playground for your work, but it's when you go at it from this external vision of perfectionism that is very subjective and that is always moving. When you go at it from that approach, and you go at it from the approach of the fact that you have to be perfect and meet this always moving external subjective definition of perfect, then you create a lot of suffering for yourself in your life as a life coach. So I basically learned to use my own tools in my own life and to recognize my own internal judgment and that it could get very out of control very fast. Because I was so used to turning to that for my solution. If I wanted to make change in my life, I just had to judge myself harshly enough and feel bad enough about my life to want to change it, right? And then I could just beat myself up and be like, oh, look at how horrible you are, and look at what you're doing here. You're so stupid. You're so broken. Nobody's going to love you. You're never going to be good enough. You're never going to make anything out of your life. You're never going to be anything good in this life if you don't change this, and this, and this, and this, and this isn't good enough, and that's not good enough, and why are you making... I could do that to myself all day long. And I know all of you can too. Our brain is designed with a negativity bias, which is why we have this internal voice. But my friends, our brain is a tool that we get to use. And when you learn the tools that you learn through working with a life coach, you learn to use the biological wiring of your brain in a way that helps you move forward through compassion and love, not through self-judgment. I know so many of you have lived by this model of judgment and shame and guilt for so long, you think it's the only way to change. But I'm here to tell you it hasn't worked for anybody yet. It has not created real, authentic, sustainable change for anybody yet. And there is another way. And why would you keep choosing that model of beating yourself up to a bloody pulp in order to get some temporary change, only to find yourself feeling the same way about your life and right back into the same habits or a new reheated version of them, a new addiction that you're going to eventually be like, oh crap, I'm doing the same thing in my life yet again. Why would you keep doing that to yourself if I'm sitting here telling you there's another way? And I get we're taught to be afraid of believing that because that other way is uncertain for our brain, which is another biological wiring in our brain, is to teach us or to tell us to stick with the certain, avoid the uncertain because it's dangerous. And again, as life coaches, we learn and we teach tools of being able to use those reactions in the brain for us and to step outside of that reaction that the brain is wanting you to take of avoiding pain, avoiding uncertainty, seeking pleasure, and saving energy. And we can instead use our brain and we can use our prefrontal cortex to create lives with intention and authenticity that we actually want to be living in instead of feeling like we're at the affect of the wiring of our brain all of the time. So I noticed this in myself, and I noticed this reaction to judge. And I learned that if I didn't practice what I teach others and become my own best client, that basically I would end up beating myself up to a bloody pulp because I knew all of the ways to dive into myself and look at my own thoughts and beliefs and, recognize where I was making excuses. And I could very easily turn my life into this like, nope, you got to fix this and fix this and fix this and this and this and this isn't right and that's not good and you're making excuses. That I could do that all day long. And what I recognized was how to use my tools to just be present in my life, see exactly where I am, and love myself right there. And say, Seth, all right, here's where we are. Here's where we are. And of course you've chosen to get to here. And of course you've chosen these beliefs because this is what you've thought was going to keep you safe and to keep you alive and to keep you okay in life and to get you acceptance and to get you the love that you want. But now we see that there's another way. And now we see that we can do more when we're ready to and when we want to. So what's the step we want to take? What's the step forward that we want to take? What's the challenge that we want to give ourselves? And taking a step. And being in that step. Not being like, oh, but wait, what about this over here and that over there and that over there? And oh my God, there's all of this that also has to change. We got to hurry up and change it all. Oh my God, I've got to get to this place where I can feel better about myself because I'm so horrible. Like I could go into that voice so quickly. But I could recognize it's okay. I know where that voice comes from. I know that voice comes from a space of taught shame and taught guilt and taught fear and taught regret. But I don't have to follow that voice anymore. I can give that voice a new job. And that's what I teach my clients to do, is instead of going into this internal violence and resistance and reactivity and shame and guilt, I could give these voices a new job of curiosity, love, and learning and redirect those energies into me showing up in life as more of who I actually am. And recognizing that all of the rest of what I thought I was just a misunderstanding and I could release that. Instead of shrinking and hiding into fear and shame and putting those layers of who I thought I had to be over myself and being like, well, this is why I can't do anything. And shrinking down and hiding into not taking action because I was afraid. I learned the practice of feeling shame and leaning into it to process and release it. And that's become one of the most powerful and active tools in my life. And I think that so many people do not recognize how often they heap shame on themselves. I know because when I work with clients, oftentimes when I'm telling them, like, you don't have to use fear or shame, they're like, I'm not. And then I show them, like, look at what you're saying to yourself here. Look at the message you're giving yourself here. What is that a message of? And they recognize that actually is. That's guilt and shame right there. And I can show them why they're doing it, not from a space of, oh, you're so broken, there's something wrong with you. I can show them why they chose this path and thought it was the best path for them. But then I can also open their eyes to question that path and recognize that there are other options for them that are authentic for them that they want to choose, and help them to be able to release that shame being something that they have to react to and have to hate themselves to change themselves. I get that it becomes so second nature and so programmed that people don't recognize that they're doing it and how damaging it is in creating their life and in their relationship with themselves. So this is something that I'm very passionate in coaching people about, is learning to recognize our own patterns of shaming and guilting and regretting ourselves, and being able to release those internalized, adopted messages of shame and guilt and regret, and learning to recognize why we chose to adopt them, and what we thought we were protecting ourselves from, and how we can actually choose an authentic path forward, releasing those that is about love and compassion and empowerment, and showing up more as ourselves, leaning into the shame because we recognize on the other side of it is simply a message. It's a misunderstanding, and we can create a new understanding that's true and release the old one. So yeah, as I did this, I was no longer able to lie to myself about my own life. The more I got into life coaching, like Christine Hassler said, my life became my learning grounds. And I was no longer able to lie to myself about my life and bury things. But the thing was, because of the tools that I had to kind of work through things as they came up that I had buried for so long, I could see now that I actually didn't want to bury them. I had tools to allow them to come up when they came up and to work through them and to truly look at them for the first time with love and compassion instead of shame and guilt. And to then release them as being misunderstandings of myself, as being layers of not who I was that were covering up who I truly am underneath it, and being able to release it and show up as the real me, even as other people misunderstood. Even as other people still had stories about me from, past ways that I was showing up in my life. So I learned to invite these things coming up and show themselves to me, and that I could just shed away more layers of what was not me. I wasn't afraid of them anymore, but I also wasn't in a rush, this rush to hurry up and be good enough that I was like, oh no, what else is wrong with me? Trying to find it and like, oh my God, that's so awful and horrible and I need to shame myself for it and feel so disgusting about it and I can't believe I believe that about myself. Gotta get away from it. It was no longer about that. It was about, I see you there. Come here, have a seat, let's sit down and talk. Let's figure out this together. Where did you come from? Why are you here? How do you want to help me? And let's find a way forward where it actually helps us both to show up in this life empowered and as a truer version of ourselves. Not this version of ourselves that's ashamed and hiding because we feel like we have to, or because we've been told that we should. So yeah, and in life as a life coach, it is important to set these healthy boundaries in your life. First of all, setting healthy boundaries with yourself, because you will be tempted to turn yourself into a never-ending project of things that have to or need to or should be fixed. And I see this happen with new coaching clients all the time, as well as with new coaches all the time. And so what I will say is, as a life coach, that is one thing that you're going to experience. And one thing that I've experienced in life is that you will want to have these healthy boundaries in your relationship with yourself as a coach, and that is essential. And even as a coachee, to notice that desire to rush and get somewhere in life where you're allowed to like yourself finally, and allowed to feel better about yourself finally. So setting those boundaries with myself was so important, and it will be for you too. And to notice when I was changing something that I wanted to change and had the capacity to put in the time to do with love and compassion, versus when I was trying to change something to hurry up and feel better about myself and to prove to others that I was good enough or deserved to be a life coach or that I was accomplished in life. So yeah, setting healthy boundaries with myself was very important, but also setting healthy boundaries with relationships with others in life is so important, because as a coach, I was, and I know you will be too, more than likely tempted to want to coach everyone around you, because you'll start hearing the stories and what they're saying and recognizing where what they're saying it as if it's a fact, but it's actually a story. And learning to see these things happening around you and know that you could provide tools to help others to process through the stories that they're creating and the results that they're creating in their life, and to face the things that they're hiding from and to show up more as themselves. And you'll feel this desire, but you'll want to be able to release the responsibility of stepping in. And that was a tough one for me. It was a really tough one for me. Hearing people talking in ways of victimhood around me, and just being able to love them exactly where they are and have compassion for them exactly where they are without feeling like I have to step in and help them. I have to help them fix this. And that I could be there for them any moment in time where they choose to be ready, where they see it and they're ready, but I don't have to help them. And I can love them just where they are, even with their stories of victimhood. They don't have to change those stories for me to love them and have compassion for them and hold space for them and be with them. And that was a lesson that I really struggled with for a long time as a coach, is being able to recognize that even though I can help people get over their stories, I don't have to. And that underneath those stories, these people are an amazing being. And they are still that being, even if they're covering it up with these stories. And I can still love them for being that being, even as they cover themselves up with these stories, because I can have compassion with understanding why they're doing it. And that is part of their human experience right now. And they are allowed to have that human experience for as long as they want to, until they're ready to learn something else. And when they're ready to learn something else, either I or another life coach will be there to help them when they're ready to take a step that is outside of that current way that they're showing up. So yeah, these were some of the really big lessons for me that were kind of tough for me to learn as a life coach. And one last part of living as a life coach that I want to touch on in this episode, and I think is important for people who are interested in becoming a life coach, or even for those of you out there who want to work with a life coach, is that there are many stereotypes and misconceptions about life coaches and life coaching that lead people down some very confusing paths and either wanting to work as a life coach or in search of a life coach. So I want to bring up some of these and clear them up today for you guys. Some of the biggest misconceptions and stereotypes. There are many people in the world who are very skeptical of life coaches, and also many that have no idea what a life coach actually is, and many of people that are both, because they're unaware of what a life coach is and therefore they are skeptical. And I find that most people who are skeptical of life coaching, it's actually because they're unfamiliar with what life coaching actually is. They have a very big misunderstanding of what it actually is, because I was skeptical of it too until I started understanding it. And then I'm like, okay, I don't have to defend myself against this. Once I actually understood what life coaching was all about and the power of it, and that it really does create powerful change in life that no other process out there can create for a person. And so because of this, because of the fact that there are so many misunderstandings, I've faced many accusations when people find out I'm a life coach, many stereotypes, many misconceptions that people throw at me when they find out that I'm a life coach. And I would say in the beginning, I was very offended, and I would feel very defensive when I would encounter this. But as a life coach who had the tools that I had available to me, I became very aware very quick of why I was feeling defensive and why I was feeling attacked, and being able to sort of release the responsibility of people understanding life coaching and understanding what I do as a life coach, and to realize that understanding is a sensitivity of mine, it's a value of mine, and so that's why I feel it a lot, but that I'm not responsible for making a person understand. And that just because they misunderstand doesn't make it true. And that I can hear a million misunderstandings, and that doesn't make it true, as long as I know what the truth is. And, before I was aware of this and the fact that understanding was a sensitivity of mine, I was always trying to create this understanding in the world around me. And so this came up very strongly for me as a life coach in the beginning. When people had these misconceptions and misunderstandings, I needed to defend life coaching and defend myself as a life coach. And I would try and create more understanding in the world by trying to control what other people thought about life coaching and control what other people thought about me, because I thought that control meant the understanding. And I learned that the only place that I could control understanding was actually within myself. I can offer understanding to other people, but I can't control other people's understanding. It is always up to the other person if they are receptive to it and willing to seek the path of understanding. And I used to get so frustrated in the beginning of my experience with knowing this about myself and knowing that understanding was important to me. And I felt this need to make sure everyone knew it and, that understanding was important for me. But I also felt the need that I needed to make people understand me in order to feel understood. That I needed to be surrounded by people that were willing to understand me in order for me to feel understood. But what I've learned is, through experience, some people are just simply committed to misunderstanding me. And I'm the only one that suffers when I resist this, not anyone else. A life coach that I admire once said this, and it's always resonated with me and become a regular reminder for me and a practice in my life. It is something that I offer my clients as well. And there's this power in allowing. And she would always say to me, Brooke Castillo would always say, can you choose to allow other people to misunderstand you, to get you wrong, and still know who you are, Choosing to see this is happening and releasing the responsibility to change this because I recognize that someone else's misunderstanding of me isn't what determines who I actually am. So it was simply about being able to follow that misunderstanding of me and allow it to exist, see it there, and then move back to my knowing of who I am and seeing that this knowing of who I am doesn't get changed. Doesn't matter how many people on this planet think something different of me. Who I am doesn't change. A diamond doesn't become something else just because a lot of people don't think it's a diamond. If it is a diamond, it's a diamond. So who I am doesn't get changed. And I know me. Can I know me and know for sure that I know me and release the responsibility of those who simply misunderstand me because of their experience of the world? And the more I put myself out there and my work out there, the more people that encounter it, I encounter more and more people who are committed to misunderstanding me. And that was a struggle for me as a life coach. That was a real struggle for me, is being willing to put my work out there and receive comments, receive emails, receive messages from people who were committed to misunderstanding my work and were even angry about my work because of their misunderstandings of it. And being able to recognize the moment that this person wants to understand, I am here to help them understand. And I can offer them understanding, but it is not my choice to make them understand. They will want to choose it. And if they're not willing to choose it, I can release that, and it changes nothing about me or who I am or the work that I do. So the more I put my work out there, the levels of misunderstanding also grew deeper and deeper. They grew deeper as my understanding of myself grew deeper and deeper. So this has been a truly empowering and liberating practice for me to have in my life, showing myself that I can feel shame, I can feel judgment that comes from my own misunderstandings of who I used to believe that I was. And knowing that when I hear someone misunderstanding me and I feel some shame or judgment, it goes back to something that I used to misunderstand about myself, or that I still misunderstand about myself. And I can observe it. I can forgive myself for believing that misunderstanding about myself. I can change the way I'm showing up in my life if I'm showing up in a way that represents that misunderstanding. But I can still know that's not me. And I can love myself for how I thought I was protecting myself by living in that misunderstanding and believing that misunderstanding. And I can give that a new job. I can process, I can release the shame. And I can be at peace with allowing others to misunderstand me as long as they want to. And when they're ready to understand me, I know how to show them the real me. But I still get to be the real me the entire time that they live in that misunderstood experience of me. And their misunderstanding cannot hurt me. They are the only one that has to live with that experience of me, not me. And of course, I can have compassion for them if they're experiencing me in a way that is hurting them. I can have compassion for that experience, but I can know that that's not actually who I am. And I can choose to show up in other ways that are authentic for me to express the real me, but they can still be committed to misunderstanding me. And I'm not responsible for that. But I will always be here to help people understand me that want to understand. But I don't have to change my experience of me for them if they want to keep that experience of me. And I don't have to change their experience of me if they want to keep it and they want to stay in that suffering. For whatever reason, they might want to hold on to that belief in their life because maybe they think it protects them from something. And I know that because I used to do the same thing and misunderstand people in life too because I thought it protected me from something. Because here's the thing, you guys, and this is what I learned as a life coach when I started facing these misconceptions, these misunderstandings of me, as when you've shown up in your life in a certain way for so long, and then later you realize that that way you're showing up isn't you. That it's a misunderstanding that you've carried or adopted or internalized about yourself and you thought was true or had to be true about you. But when you realize that you can release that and start showing up in your life in an entirely different way, this can feel disorienting for people who've known you for a long time. And these people will be committed to an image of you that they've carried for a long time because the images that they carry of other people are part of a story that makes their image of themselves and their life make sense. So when someone around us tries to change that image, it's challenging for us in our story. And sometimes that can feel so terrifying for a person to accept and to see it. And to see that there is a possibility to change the story. And so they're so afraid that they double down on their misunderstanding of you. They may choose to be like, no, I can't forgive you. You will always be this kind of person. No matter what you do in your life, this is who you are. And they will tell you who you are. And my friends, you have to understand that is about them and their story of conditional worth about themselves and their own ability to change in how they're showing up in their life. And that how they're showing up in their life currently isn't who they are either, and that they can change it once they realize who they really are, and that it's not the ways that they've been showing up. But so many people are committed to their misunderstood identities of shame, victimhood, fear, regret, guilt, and helplessness. So trying to force them to see who you actually are as you uncover it, it won't work. When they are ready to have their own misunderstood identity released, and therefore they're willing to see that their way of identifying people around them can also be released, then of course you can help them. But this is a process that only works when the other person is ready. And this is somewhere that I see so many people get scared and feel stuck back in old identities and behaviors that don't serve them because they can't release the responsibility of misunderstandings from other people. And so they go back to their old ways of showing up because they don't know how to continue showing up as they are now, discovering who they truly are, as the gap between who they truly are and how they're showing up now and the people that they knew from growing up, how they identify them, as that gap gets bigger and bigger, I see people get scared and they jump right back into old habits because they're like, oh, maybe this isn't who I am. Maybe they get imposter syndrome instead of recognizing that the imposter is the old behavior, the layers that they've covered their true selves up with. The layers of victimhood, the layers of shame, the layers of anger and guilt and fear, that those are the imposter. But it's what they're familiar with. And the brain convinces them to go back to that and identify with that, instead of identifying with who they're now discovering that they've truly been this whole time that was underneath those layers of masks and fake identities. So I see people getting stuck here. And I want to bring this to the surface, my friends, as you go through life coaching, working with a coach, or as if you become a life coach, this will happen. As you change the way you're showing up in your life and start showing people who you truly are underneath all those layers that you've been hiding under, people will misunderstand you. They will identify you in ways that you will recognize, I used to identify myself that way, and until you are willing to see, those were the imposter. And believe who you truly are and keep showing up as that. Accepting that is the key to being able to unstoppably keep showing up in your life as the version of you that you want to be instead of going back to those old behaviors. So, now that we've talked about the fact that these misunderstandings and these misconceptions and these stereotypes exist, I want to talk about what some of them are, because I know a lot of you out there have these, because I polled my audience on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and texted my friends, emailed people, and asked them, hey, tell me what you think life coaching is about. Tell me what you think a life coach is. And so I know that these are real misconceptions because not only have I had people say them to me, I asked you guys. So I want to share some of these with you guys so that I can sort of clear up some of the misunderstandings about life coaching and maybe help you all understand what life coaching is really all about, and maybe help you make a decision if you want to become a life coach, or maybe you want to start actually working with a coach instead of carrying one of these stories about what life coaching is that's maybe telling you, oh, no, I don't want to work with a coach. So, first misconception. Life coaches tell you how you should live your life. And under that, what I mean by that is people think that life coaches are very similar to mentors or advisors, and that life coaches know the right way to live, and that they tell people how to do that. So this is a huge misconception, because life coaching is not about telling a person how they should or have to or need to live. As a matter of fact, in life coaching, these are dirty words. The word should is dripping with inauthenticity. The word have to is dripping with inauthenticity. The word need to is dripping with inauthenticity. Because there's nothing in this life that we have to, must, or should do. There's only what we want to do. And we do what we want to do based on what we think is possible for us. And it's the best that we can do in the moment. But guess what? The moment that we change the story about what is possible for us, the story about what we can do, and therefore what we want to do, also changes. So this is one of the biggest things that I help my life coaching clients with, is recognizing if you're using should, then you're in a disempowered, victimized state in your life. You are in an inauthentic state in your life. You are not making decisions about what you want in life and creating an authentic plan of how you're going to create those results in your life. So life coaches will not tell you what you should do in life. We might tell you how we did things to give you an example of what's possible. But as a life coach working with a client, our job is to help you discover what is authentic for you in your life, what has been authentic in your experience, what you have internalized and adopted that is not yours, how you want to release it, and what you actually want to believe is possible for your life, based in what you truly value, based in what you're truly sensitive to in life, and then based on your truest desires. So life coaches aren't going to tell you how you should live your life. No, that is a huge misunderstanding. And the big difference between us and a mentor or an advisor is that mentors and advisors give you advice or mentorship on experience that they have, expertise that they have, that tells you how you should do things based on how they did things and had success. And a life coach isn't going to do that. A life coach is going to ask you about your life so that you can discover how it is that you've been making decisions up until now and how it's created the results of where you are. So you can see all the stories surrounding that are keeping you limited in what is possible for you, and then helping you discover a true, authentic story that is based in your core values, not the values that you should have, but the values that are actually truthful for you. And I have a very unique process that I take my clients through to help them discover values that are truly theirs, not the ones that they should have, or that the Bible says they should have, or the church says they should have, or society says that they should have, or the Bible, or whatever religious book. It's their true values, and they discover it through lived experience. So I take my clients through understanding those and then making decisions about what they want in life based in that. And therefore, if you want this, what is the path that is going to work for you to get you there? Not the path that worked for someone else. I mean, granted, we might use some steps from another person's path when we get there, but it's going to be from exactly where you are in your life, step by step by step, to get you towards a result. That's the difference between mentorship and coaching, is that I'm not going to tell you how you should live life based on what I did. I'm going to help you discover the life you want and how you want to get there and how to make you unstoppable in going after that. All right, so that's the first big misconception. Another one, life coaches are like therapists who make you talk about your past problems all of the time. So this is a big misconception because life coaches, we will address problems and the past. We will bring them up to give context to the way you're currently showing up in your life, and why you're currently showing up in your life, and why you feel the way you feel about your life. But we don't do that so we can focus on them. We do that so we can show you you're creating these results right now, and this is how you've done it. So how do we use that? If you have the power to create this life right now by doing these things, how do we use that power to create a life you want? So problems and past are only context to help us look at how we want to do things differently in the future, not to focus on them and feel bad about them and dwell in them and, cry about them. And, there will be some healing involving past problems, but we're not doing this so we can live a life based on those past problems. We're looking at them to heal and move forward in an entirely different way. So we're not like therapists, even though some therapists do coach. All right, another misconception is that coaches help people get through life and its problems. I talked about this in a few episodes. Guys, I'm not here to help you get through life. I'm not here to make sure that you're okay or just getting by. I'm here to help you thrive in life. I'm here to show you your power to create a life that you want, not survive in a life that you feel like you have to survive in. So coaches are not here to just help you get through life, okay? And they're not here to help you survive your problems. Coaches are here to help you create a life in which you want to be in all parts of it, and you're excited to be in all parts of it, and you show up for all parts of it, okay? So that's another common misconception. Another misconception is that life coaches have to be older and have a lot of lived life experience in order to be able to coach. And that's not true. I know plenty of successful life coaches in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So lived experience is not what makes a coach powerful. What makes coaching powerful is being able to be with someone in their experience and help them see it for what it truly is, and then make informed and empowered and authentic decisions about what they want to do with their life, based on how they've been creating their life from that point and backwards, how they've been creating their life. So life coaches don't need to be older and have a ton of lived experience to be effective coaches. Some of the most effective coaches that I know are in their 20s. So they don't have to have a ton of experience. It's about their ability to be present with a person and truly hear their story and help the other person see how it is just a story and how they've created that story with so much power. And because of that, they have the power to change it. So that's another misconception. Another misconception would be that life coaches have to have experience in the area of life that they're coaching someone in order to be an effective coach. And this is also not true because, again, it's not about us advising people on how they should do things or have to do things or need to do things. We're going to help you figure out the way that you want to take a path forward based on your power, based on your authentic experience, based on your true values and your true sensitivities in life. Now, we may help you look at some how-tos and help you kind of look through what you're sensitive to, what your values are in life, and help you make a decision on which path forward looks like the best one for you, the one you want to take. But I'm not going to, as a life coach is not going to tell you this is the way forward for you. This is the path you have to take. This is the path you should take because this is how I did it. So it's not about lived experience. It's about being able to show you your authentic path forward based on options that you have and showing you that there are always going to be more options that you can discover and helping you move forward unstoppably in a path that is authentic for you. All right. Another misconception that I got is that life coaches are just here to kind of cheer you on with your goals. Kind of like a sports coach stands on the sideline and cheers you on during a game. And my friends, life coaches do so much more than just cheering you on. Do we cheer you on? Yes. But we're also there to show you your blind spots, to show you where you might be allowing old stories to creep back in, where you have, because it's such a habit for you to let them creep back in. So we can kind of stop you for a second and be like, hey, look at what you're doing here. Look at the message you're giving yourself. Is this truly the message you want to give yourself? Is this truly going to give you the result you want right now? And if not, why are we choosing it? What are we trying to protect ourselves from? What are we trying to create here? So what's the action we want to take? So it's about more than just cheering you on. It's about holding space for you. It's about asking the right questions to redirect you when you've hit a blind spot or when you've hit an obstacle that you don't see. That's what coaching is about. All right, another one is that life coaches are all about toxic positivity and that life coaches aren't supposed to experience certain emotions such as anger, panic, anxiety, fear, whatever. All right, so I've talked about this idea of toxic positivity. And what toxic positivity is not that positivity is toxic. It's when our relationship to positivity becomes one of resistance. When our relationship to positivity becomes one of resistance to the full human experience and is about only experiencing a small part of the human experience, then positivity feels toxic to us because our relationship to it becomes toxic. And here's what I want to say. Life coaches are not about toxic positivity. And if you have a life coach that's teaching you to avoid certain emotions, to try and resist certain emotions, to get rid of certain emotions, I would come and talk to me because this is not what life coaching is about. And I would say that they might have a misunderstanding of life coaching and the model of life coaching, because in the life coaching model, there is no such thing as a bad emotion. There's no such thing as even a negative emotion. All emotions are there as a spotlight to show us something that we are actually wanting to learn about our story in life and our life itself. So life coaches are not about toxic positivity. Life coaches are not about resisting emotions. Being a life coach does not mean that I don't experience certain emotions. It doesn't mean that I don't experience anxiety, panic, or fear, or sadness. It means that when I do experience them, I open myself to them. I let the emotions come in and have a seat with peace. And I know how to speak with them. I know how to give them space to process all the way through and tell me everything that they're there to tell me, without becoming reactive or resistant to the emotion and showing up in a way that isn't my true self. Because I hear the message behind the emotion. I hear the true desired result behind the emotion, not the reactive, resistant desire behind the emotion. And I can allow an emotion to be present in my life. I can feel fear and anxiety, and I can still step forward feeling fully empowered while I hold my own fear and anxiety's hand and say, hey, look what we're about to do together. Trust me, I've got you here. You can be here as long as you want to. Have a seat on the couch. I'll make you a cup of tea. I'll give you a blanket. I'll make it as comfortable for you to be here as long as you need to be here to recognize, I've got you, and we're going to take this path forward together. And we've got this together. That's what life coaching is all about. It's not about resisting emotions. It's not about not feeling certain emotions. It's not about feeling happy all the time in life and feeling, joyful about everything in life. It's not about seeing things that are a struggle for us and being like, oh, that's not bad. That's good. It's not about resisting the struggle or the uncertainty or the challenge. It's not about resisting or turning away from or getting rid of any of that feeling of challenge or uncertainty or fear. It's not about that. It's about being like, yes, this feels challenging. Yes, this feels uncertain. Yes, I feel scared, and I'm here for all of it. But this is the real me over here, and this is what we want in life. And while I can hold the hand of my fear, I can understand why it's there, what it's showing me about what I think and believe about life. And I can reassure it, hey, I've got you. Come on, let's step forward into this and see what's on the other side. Let's find what's possible for us when we release this story and believe that there is another story out there of more possibility for us. That's what life coaching is about. And I know that so many of us are taught this model of resistance that it's hard to recognize when a life coach starts talking about, moving forward in the face of fear. We hear, because of this model of resistance, we hear that being about resisting the fear, getting rid of the fear, not feeling fear, but that's not what it's about. And so if you think this is what life coaching is about, I would really ask you to work with a life coach who doesn't ask you to resist emotions or to put away emotions or to not feel certain emotions, or tells you, not a life coach that tells you it's about only feeling certain emotions in life. I want you to work with a life coach that is about feeling the full range of emotions and being able to show up as who we really are, fully empowered with every emotion that comes up. And that emotions don't stop us from taking the actions that we want to take. But at the same time, we can feel the emotions the whole way through and process them and learn from them. That's what life coaching is about. It's not about this resistance. Okay, so another misconception or stereotype is that life coaches don't need help or coaching themselves. My friends, this is so not true. Life coaches work with coaches. We hire our own coaches because we all have blind spots. We are all humans. We all have our own stories. And I work with coaches to help me see my own blind spots. I work with coaches to help me see where I'm telling myself stories again and selling myself short of what actions are possible for me and what I can do and the results that I'm able to create in my life. I work with coaches too. Most coaches that I know work with coaches. The big successful coaches out there that you see, like Tony Robbins, Brooke Castillo, Christine Hassler, whoever, you name it, I guarantee you ask them, they're working with coaches too. So my friends, it's not that once you become a life coach, you never need help and you never need coaching. As a matter of fact, we turn to coaching more often because we know the power of it. We know that when we feel stuck and like we're not getting the results we want in life, we know it probably has to do with a story that we're holding on to. And we know that another coach is going to be able to get in there and be like, hey, wait, hold on. You just said this like it was a fact. Can we look at that here for a second? Can we look at what you're stating as a fact here and see how this might actually be a story that's holding you back? Because oftentimes these stories are so programmed in our heads, we don't see it as a story. And another coach is able to kind of pluck that out of the story and be like, hey, right here's the problem. You're telling yourself this, and therefore this is the action that you're taking. But what if we believed something else here? What if something else was possible to believe? And they open up and expand the mindset of the person that they're coaching with to see that there's more possibility there. And this is why coaches will always work with coaches, because we know, as a human, I am going to hold myself back at points in time. I have a brain. And working with a coach doesn't make me weak. It doesn't make me unable to coach. It doesn't make me not an effective coach. It means that I know the power of coaching and the importance of it and the value of it. And that, yeah, while we can do some self-coaching, we will always have blind spots. And that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean that we're broken as a human. It means that that's part of being a human, and having a coach there to help us see them is part of also being a human. Us as humans get to hold mirrors up to each other and say, hey, look at what you're saying about yourself here. That's what's holding you back. Now, what do you want to say differently? So that is another misconception, is that coaches don't need help or need coaches themselves. And then the last misconception or misunderstanding or stereotype that I want to bring up is that a coach's job is to make people feel better. This goes back to that thing about toxic positivity. My job as a coach is not to make you feel better. A lot of times people do feel better after coaching because they're not in resistance to their full emotional experience. But the point of coaching is not to start living a life where all you ever feel is happy all the time or all you ever feel is pleasure all the time. It's not about that. It's not about you feeling better. It is about you recognizing that you have the power in your story about yourself. You are the one creating your emotional experience. And whatever emotion comes up, it is there to show you something about yourself, something that you believe about life. It's not there to be resisted. It's not there to be looked at as something wrong. It's there to teach you something important about your power. Because if you're creating a story for yourself so powerful, where that belief is creating results and reactions in your life and creating the life that you're living in, you created that. You created that, my friend. That was your power there. So every emotion is there to remind you of your power to create a life. To create a life that you want versus a life that you feel like you have to be living. So it's not about you feeling good all the time or happy all the time in life. It is about being willing and empowered to show up for all of your life and to have a life of intention and authenticity that you create with intention, that you create with purpose, that you create with values that are authentic for you. That's what life coaching is about. All right, guys, this episode was a little bit long today, episode number 100. I wanted it to go a little bit long. I wanted to share a little bit more about my life and kind of rehash some of the stuff I talked about in the Getting to Know Me episode, which was my first episode. Wanted to bring that story back forward, talk about it again from where I am now in life, tell you guys a bit about why I life coach, what it's like being a life coach, some of the common misconceptions and stereotypes about life coaching, and clear some of those up. And the last thing I want to do for you all is offer this. I know that some of you all out there have been considering life coaching for a while. And a lot of you all out there have some stories about why you can't life coach. Some of them having to do with money. Some of them having to do with a lot of other things. But one of them has to do with money. I know a lot of you are afraid to work with a life coach because you think that you can't afford it. And what I'm here to tell you is, my friends, you can't not afford it. You can't afford to not work with a life coach. And once you start working with a life coach, you're going to start seeing the areas of your life where things are getting to be really expensive and you're spending money on things that are actually inauthentic for you, and where you would actually have that money to do things that are truly valuable for you in your life and invest that money in things that are truly valuable for you in your life and use your money to work for you, but you're not doing that because of your story about money and yourself and your relationship with it. So here's my offer for you guys. My offer for you guys is that the first five people who go to my website, which is www.lifecoachseth.com, that's www.lifecoachseth.com. It's going to be linked in the show notes. First 5 people to go to my website, book a free discovery call with me, and mention this episode. You will not only get the discovery call free with me, I'm going to use that discovery call and I'm going to extend it a bit beyond what I normally do with a discovery call. And I'm going to start giving you some exercises that you can take into your life to help you with what it is that you're struggling with, what it is that you've been debating hiring a life coach on. I'm going to give you some exercises to start putting into practice in your life. And we're going to schedule a free call, a follow-up call, an hour-long coaching follow-up call, in which I'm going to help you to cipher through the results of the exercises that you've put into practice in your life, help you see the results that you got and what you can do with them, how you can put them into practice, and give you just a bit of a taste of what it's like to work with a coach versus trying to do this on your own. So you can see the value of how working with a coach is going to open up possibility for you that you didn't think was possible before. First 5 people to go to my website, book a free discovery call, and in the description of why you want to book the discovery call with me, all you have to do is mention episode number 100 on the Authentic Life Connection podcast. Mention it in any way, shape, or form that you want to. Just tell me that you listened to this podcast episode and you want to book a discovery call with me. And if you are one of those first 5 people, I'm going to personally, make sure you put your email in there. I'm going to personally send you an email back letting you know you were one of the first 5 people. And that to be ready in your discovery call, we're going to start diving in. We're going to move a little bit quicker than I would normally do in a discovery call because I want to get to exercises in that discovery call, which normally I don't get to until we actually start working together. But I want to go ahead and give you exercises in that discovery call so that we can start moving forward. And then on your first actual free call with me, the first free call that I'm going to give you with me, we can already start showing you some progress in your life and the power of coaching. Okay, so that's my offer for you guys. First 5 people, head to my website, book the discovery call, mention this episode, and if you're one of the first 5 people, you're going to get that free discovery call and you're going to get a free 1-hour coaching session with me. And I'm going to start shifting some things in your life and opening you up to an authentic life where you are empowered and ready to become unstoppable and creating the life that you want, not just the life that you feel like you should or have to or need to be living or surviving through. All right, so that is my offer for you guys. That's what I have for you guys today. If you guys have questions for me otherwise, please also reach out and contact me. I have a contact form on my website. You don't just have to book a free discovery call. You can also just email me and ask me your questions. You can contact me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm also on Reddit. Find me on these social media platforms and reach out to me there with your questions, thoughts. I would love to hear what you all think about this episode. And maybe there's some stuff in here that you're like, I wonder if you could clarify this. Maybe I can make another episode about it. Guys, there's so much more that I could talk about here in my life as a life coach, but I want to hear back from you guys. So first 5 people, you get a free discovery call and free coaching call with me. The rest of you, if you just want to book that discovery call anyways. Even if you aren't one of the top 5 people, the first 5 people, you still get that free discovery call with me. And I promise you, I'm going to show you how coaching can help you. Even if you decide to work with another coach or not work with me, I'm going to show you how coaching can help you. There's no obligation to work with me by booking that free discovery call, but I want to at least show you how coaching could help you so that you understand that there is more possibility out there for you. That's the purpose of the call. All right. I love you guys. Thank you for joining me on this journey of 100 episodes. I'm so happy to have reached episode number 100, but it doesn't end here. I've got more coming for you guys. I've got at least 10 episodes in the queue right now of topics that I have coming your way, and I've always got new topics coming to me. So guys, this podcast is far from over. I have so much more to share with you all, and I just want you all to understand I could get to 500 episodes, and we're only going to be touching the tip of the iceberg of how coaching could help you. So stay tuned. If you're not ready yet to believe in the power of working with a coach, I'm here to show you how coaching can change your life. And one of these days, I'm going to get you on a discovery call. And one of these days, I'm going to show you how to put all of these topics that we've covered over these 100 episodes into practice in your own life so you can blow your own damn mind with what's possible for you. All right? I love you all. I can't wait to see you guys here again next week for episode number 101. Until then, ciao. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the content of this podcast. If you did, please subscribe so that you're one of the first people to know when I release a new episode each week. If you have any questions, or if you have interest in learning more about the coaching that I do with my clients one-on-one, then just head over to my website at www.lifecoachseth.com. That's www.lifecoachseth.com. There you're going to have the ability to reach out to me for questions that you might have, or to book your free discovery call with me to discuss what one-on-one coaching with me might be like for you. You can also check out and order your copy of my book to get a taste of what I'm all about as a person and as a coach. I'm so happy that you joined us today, and I hope to have you here again next week. So until then, let authenticity be the guide to your most unstoppable and fulfilling journey of life.